Sometimes on this podcast, I get to speak to absolute strangers whom I've never met before I see them on the screen. Sometimes I speak to someone whom I've known all my life. For example, I interviewed my brother, who is not even 2 years younger than I am, back in the summer, and I hope you'll go back and look at that one. It's called Montpelier Mansion. Sometimes I meet and talk to colleagues I've known for years, and sometimes I get to talk to old friends. And that's what you're going to hear today as I sit down and talk from Dalton, Georgia, with some friends who are near Cleveland, Ohio, but are soon going back to their home in Japan. Please listen as Bill and Becky Petite and I have a fascinating discussion about intercultural communication, Japan, mission work, and travel. Welcome to Dialogues with Creators, Bill and Becky Petite.
Hi. Hi, Bob.
Good to be here.
Glad to be here.
I'm so excited that you are on this episode, and you will be going back to Japan very soon. And so I would like to just start with you telling your story, because when we had our social meeting about a month ago and with old friends, you had a short video where you did that. So I would kind of like you to replicate that, but maybe not quite as without the pictures, obviously, because it's just oral. But if you could just tell us your story, and I think that's where we'll start, and I might insert a couple questions, but your story is so fascinating that I think it's just where we need to start. Go for it.
Okay, well, Becky needs to go first because she's far, far older than I.
Oh, come on now. I'm only 6 months older. Well, my parents went to Japan in 1955 on a freighter with twin boys, and one of them was deaf and one of them was hearing. And they went to a city called Kagoshima, which is in southern Japan, with, we found out recently, number 9 most dangerous volcanoes in the world.
Yep.
But that has nothing to do with anything. But
Unbeknownst to them, it had the largest deaf school in all of Japan.
yeah, the Lord certainly knew.
Oh, my.
And I was born 2 years later and grew up in Japan.
And really, our story is now 4 generations because Becky and then we got married. Our kids are in Japan. Our grandkids are in Japan as well.
Yep. We are very thankful for what the Lord's done
And
the last 35 years.
and I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and met Becky at college, the same college that Barb used to go to and teach at. And she asked me to marry her.
Oh, come on now.
Okay. I asked her to marry me.
Now, let me just jump in here. Okay.
Yeah.
Becky asking you to, no. I was there. I mean, I wasn't there at the marriage proposal, but I was there when y'all met and y'all were dating and you were like crazy over her. You just couldn't do enough to get near Becky. You were in love. So none of this nonsense.
That's right. Sure. Okay, I asked her to marry me, and she said, did you say yes?
Yes, I did.
Okay, well, and we were married in 1980.
Yep. And before that, the Lord worked in our hearts. It's sort of fun because we were both 8 years old when we trusted in Christ and realized our sin and that the cross was for us. And
I decided to go to a country where few people knew the gospel when I was 11. So, yeah. And we got married, had 2 kids. I went to seminary.
It took him a few years to get through.
Yeah, I had a 3-year course. I took 5.5 years.
But I will give it to him, he was working full time, and the Lord gave us 2 kids. And it's amazing to think that they're in Japan serving the Lord, and that's only by God's grace.
I also had a couple years where I worked for Services for the Deaf in Chattanooga, since we worked with deaf all our life, and Becky was already a very, very skilled interpreter. That was very helpful.
Yeah. And really the Lord orchestrated even how, when we went to Japan, after Bill went to language school, and I did too, because I had been away from Japan, I brushed up, especially on my reading and writing. And where was I going?
Well,
that train of
I have no idea, but the Lord, we both went to language school for about 2 years, and then we moved down southern Japan. It's shaped like a banana. We're at the bottom tip, and started our work to start our first church.
And the plan was that we were going to be working really mainly with the deaf.
Yeah.
But everyone who was the missionaries that were there said, if you do that straight into out of language school, straight into deaf work, your grammar, your Japanese grammar, because of course, just like ASL, American Sign Language is different from English, Japanese Sign Language is different from ASL.
Yeah.
Or I mean, from spoken Japanese. Yeah. So anyway, so we started working with another experienced missionary, the Holritzes, and within the first year, we had a bunch of deaf people come.
Yeah.
So
deaf and hearing at the church. They left, and we just stayed there. Really, we stayed there for quite a few years until a pastor came, and then we moved to another city to start another church, and that's pretty much where we are now. We're both 68, going back to Japan, and planning on working a couple more years normally, and then retiring and trying to serve the Lord in Japan until we die.
Okay, let me back up a little bit. You said you spent 2 years in language school?
No, yeah. That's the bare minimum. Actually, I think the State Department says the 4 hardest languages in the world for an American to learn are Chinese,
Arabic,
I think
Japanese.
Korean, and Japanese.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's also hard for Japanese to learn English as well. Yeah, 2 years. And that's really just a basic start. I've been working on it my entire life. We learn stuff all the time.
Oh, we learned stuff just recently, both of us.
Yeah, really do.
And
so while you were in school, did you do anything else in terms of ministry?
Well, we did a little bit of ministry. We worked with teens and stuff, but mainly we studied. Mainly we studied for 2 years. Yeah.
He studied. We had to actually turn in time cards of how much we studied outside of class.
Yeah.
And Bill basically every week he was 80 hours a week.
Japanese has Chinese characters that they write in, as well as 2 alphabets, but they have about 2,000 Chinese characters that are used commonly. I would write 500 characters a day among my studies. I just was, I worked very hard at it. Yeah.
Wow. I think that's, I'll come back to that. That's really mind-boggling that it's 2 years. So if somebody if a couple or someone is going to go to Japan in your role, as working Christian work, they really have to be like with a concept of long term.
Oh, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
You don't go to Japan for 6 months and think that you're going to be.
Yeah, that'd be silly.
Yeah.
Really, really go for life. I always think of Adoniram Judson. He went and just his first stayed there for 40 years before he came back. So, yeah.
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 So does the I would assume then that the mission board or the sending organization would be maybe very, very particular about preparing a potential missionary to go there?
Yeah, we jump through a lot of hoops, have a lot of special training. I will say, though, in the end, our board has had dozens and dozens of people go to Japan. There's only 2 that have ever retired in Japan. Becky's dad.
Since 1955.
And Sue Han, who you know personally.
Yes.
And other people have left for, people get sick and there's various reasons they leave. But there's a lot of things that create discouragement and are hard and cause people to leave. So in other cases, language is one of them. Yeah, definitely.
So the language is a big part of it.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's hard too when if they're having kids and they have a husband and wife. I mean, it's really tough because you've got to commit to language study, but you have to raise your family too.
Yeah. Right. So, after Kagoshima, where did you land?
Well, when my parents came to Kagoshima, and I grew up the whole time there. Right. Any ministry that they had was there. And then when we came, we went to a bedroom community about 25, 30 minutes away by car.
From the northern tip, yeah.
And to a city called Aira, which is Aira. And that's where we started the first church plant.
Yeah.
And we were there for...
almost 20 years.
Oh. Was it?
Yeah. It wasn't
22.
Maybe 22. It wasn't that after our first term, first 6-year time there, we built a building, we had people, we had money. The problem is having a leader for the church. So when the Lord finally gave us a leader for the church, we moved on to start another church.
Yeah, we worked together with him for, 10 years?
10 years, yeah.
So you went to another location in Iro.
No.
In the prefecture.
It's
an
hour and a half.
about an hour and a half away.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got you.
We knew no one, basically.
We didn't know anybody in that city at all. We just moved to a totally new city and started anew.
That was really hard because all the people at the first church plant, they were our family.
Yeah, and good friends.
So,
Still are.
but you were still working mostly with the deaf, or
Mostly hearing, but with deaf as well. And that's the truth all the way through.
Yeah.
It's always been deaf and hearing.
The first church, we had deaf deacons, deaf worship leaders, hearing worship leaders, hearing deacons.
Yeah.
But the second church, we just have one couple. It's
deaf
been
couple.
very difficult with the deaf.
Yeah,
That It's a city called Izumi.
every place is different. Yeah.
so that's the third place you've been is Izumi.
No, second place. Ida, and then Izumi.
That's all.
Okay,
As a couple.
I got you. I got you. Okay. So I want to get maybe into some more particulars because there's two basic themes here. I want everybody to know about your ministry. I also want to talk about something that's always been interesting to me as a communication scholar was the intercultural communication aspect and how that fits with ministry. So, Bill, there you are. You're spending 2 years learning the language, which has kind of blown me away because I think for most Romance languages, I think it's maybe 6 months that it takes, if the people don't already know it. Compared to like the only other language I know really well, I know some German, but is Spanish. And Spanish is different from English, but it's not extremely different. And so
Right.
it's essentially the same kind of constructs and grammar and syntax. But so when you first got to Japan, was that the first time you'd ever been to Japan when you went to language school, Bill?
No, actually, Becky's mom died in 1988, and I went with Becky's dad back to Japan for about 2 weeks to take her ashes back and bury her in Japan. But for any great length of time,
Yeah.
Okay. So what were your first thoughts when you started living there, Bill?
36 years ago, I seem to remember. Boy, you're gonna hate this answer. I seem to remember that I enjoyed all the new stuff and thought it was great and a lot of fun right off the bat. But I don't remember a lot of the details.
Okay.
I know we had monkeys.
Yeah, we had monkeys.
We had monkeys in our neighborhood, and that was sort of
We had
That's
mountain
experience.
monkeys, and it's beautiful. It wasn't green, beautiful area.
just
Absolutely beautiful.
gorgeous.
Everybody's very nice.
Mm-hmm. So were people accepting of you being there as Americans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we've had but a couple people in all our years ever in any way seem to have any tension over us because we're Americans. Actually, it's very easy to make friends. I always say it's hard to make disciples, but extremely easy to make friends. People are always very kind to us.
Okay, that's interesting. So, so did you have any challenges though, just getting used to the culture and just the way things were?
I don't know that I really did much. In language learning, I did. I was often sort of depressed, I guess. I think there's two big problems that you deal with as a new language learner. Is one, you want to say things you say in English.
Yeah.
And you can't say what you say in English. You say what you can say in Japanese. So you have to just say, I would like to say that, but I can say this, and that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah. And to sort of give that up is partially giving up your pride too.
Yeah. You want to say something cool, but you can't say it. So that's like, and the other thing is, Becky is extremely good in Japanese.
Well, I just grew up there, so.
But she also has, we both took a language aptitude test before we went. She was in the 98th percentile language aptitude.
Yeah.
I was so low under 50 that they sent me a note that I probably shouldn't go to Japan.
Oh.
So I was going to spend my whole life not being as good as Becky. And not only that, I started as a 32-year-old guy. So I am never going to be as fluent as somebody who grew up there.
No.
And it's all my life. People will know from talking to me a short time that I was not born and raised in Japan. And you have to somehow, I've cried in bed over that. I mean, it really caused me a lot of burdens. You just have to somehow give it up. You're never going to be there. So be content, showing love and being kind to people and being their friends in what you can do. And I think that's one of the big keys for any missionary.
Yeah, but I think also you work like a maniac. When he was told that he didn't have the aptitude, that was like, lighting a fire under his seat.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's true.
That surprises me, Bill, because you're so intelligent. No, I mean, you really are. You're a smart guy.
Aptitude is a different bird.
I think it is a
Yeah.
temper. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Yeah. But thank you for saying that.
So when I used to teach communication, one topic was always intercultural communication and the idea of collective versus individualistic cultures. That's usually the way they have different names for them, but that's kind of the way we're taught. And Japan was, of course, always listed on one side, almost the end of the spectrum of collectivist. And the U.S. was always on the total other end. And it's sort of like what you just said about the language, that the hardest one is, the four hardest are Japanese. And so could you talk about that distinction of the individualistic collective and how you came to navigate it?
Do you want to start on this? I have a couple of things to add.
I think the one thing with just going back to the topic of language acquisition is that the Japanese language, one reason it's so hard is that there are different levels of whole different words, whole different endings for talking to somebody younger than you, older than you. It's always roundabout, like in front of a Japanese toilet. If you go in the stall, in the front, it will say, "Thank you kindly for you," in Japanese. I'm just translating vaguely. Thank you for kindly using the toilet in such a clean manner. It means don't mess it up.
Yeah.
Although
one time I saw they had that in Japanese at the top, and underneath it they put their English translation was, "You use the toilet beautifully," which I thought was pretty fun.
There's lots of things like that where in Japanese, like in the neighborhood letter that goes around, it'll say, "We appreciate everyone picking up their dog's poop.
Thank you for doing so," which doesn't mean that the people did. They're saying, "We want you to."
Yeah, that means you better clean up after your dog.
Right.
Yeah. So the language is built to accommodate that kind of softening effect. So, you have to learn that.
Yeah, the old Bibles. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, it's like we don't want to offend anyone in the group.
No.
That's where the collectivist thing comes. It's like we're all cooperative. We're not going to offend anybody, kind of keeping that harmony, I guess.
Harmony. The word harmony is actually Japan. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It is very true. Although I do think that it is going downhill. Japan's culture is changing. It's being westernized more and more. Young people are getting far and farther away from that. And it's just part of what Japan's going to be in the future. It's still much more like that than America. Yeah. America is so individualized, and people are so proud of their individuality. And I had a pastor when I first went to start a new church. I used to handwrite my sermons in Japanese, and then I'd drive 2 hours across the city to this Japanese pastor, and he would correct my sermons, rewrite them. I'd ride home and I'd drive back. He'd give me the corrected manuscript, and then I'd read it in front of him. So I'd practice having my sermon, and that's how I started out. I don't do that anymore.
And sometimes he didn't understand what he was saying it was corrected to such a...
Oh, I had no idea what he'd corrected to something I didn't even know what I said. But one of the things he always said is, "Ware wa Nihonjin wa," which means we Japanese do this. We Japanese do that. And I understood, and it's very true, that a lot of, especially older Japanese, have that sense that this is what a Japanese person does. So if they want to criticize you, they might say, "Oh, you're an American, aren't you?"
Oh, but then Sneaky Bill, he took a paragraph out of a very well-known Japanese pastor's book and put it in his sermon just to see if this pastor would say, "We don't say that as Japanese."
Oh, and he put several red lines. He said, "We Japanese don't say that." And what I understood from that, and I think is true to a certain extent, that can be a barrier to real communication. It's sort of like you decide whatever fits your desire and your preconditions and what you like to say, oh, that's what Japanese do.
Oh.
But not all Japanese necessarily do that. That's why whenever we have somebody coming to Japan, they say, what book should we read about Japan? And usually, I mean, there's nothing wrong with reading the books, but usually we just say, don't read any books because every book makes it sound like Japanese are this way.
Oh,
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily true. Every Japanese is an individual person, and they can be very different. So you have to sort of treat people like people anywhere in the world, see what they're like and what.
We had one lady, she had read a book that Japanese never show emotion or don't touch. And she came through the exit doors at the airport. And one of the ladies from our church, Mrs. Hamayumiba, a deaf lady, she just went over and bear hugged her. And this lady stood there like a fish, like, oh, what do I do? And we were like, just hug her. She's hugging you. Hug her back, you know. So it's just different for each.
Can I throw one other illustration in?
Sure, please.
That we for example, every neighborhood we've been in, there's neighborhood cleaning. It happens every few months, and somehow it always just gets
Sunday morning
on Christmas Day even.
Yeah.
And we go out and clean up the neighborhood together, and people bring their little rakes and stuff, and we pull weeds and we get the neighborhood all pretty. If there's a park, we redo the park. Well, most of the people there are rather old.
Yeah.
The younger, very seldom do we see a younger person there. They exist, but often they don't come. So what happens is the older people in the community feel responsible as a Japanese person do that. But a lot of the younger people, they do not.
Yeah.
And it shows the change and feeling about Japan as a unified group, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's very true.
I think a lot of those books are written for with more of a business idea in mind.
Yeah, you're right.
So, like there would be bowing instead of necessarily grasping hands, shaking hands and that kind of thing. So, but those are out of date in a sense because I think the Japanese business world has, they know what they got to do to make money, if you will. They've adapted to Western and European ways. So,
except for I would one area that's still always a problem is business. Is that Japanese will not want to offend the person, and the American businessman might say, da 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 da, and what do you think? And the Japanese person would not want to contradict him.
Right.
So he will make it sound very, like he might think that's not such a bad idea, but when in reality,
the answer is no.
The answer is no.
Yeah. That's one thing they do talk about in the textbooks is that Asian people or Japanese people we might infer that they agree, but they don't,
Right.
Yeah.
And but I agree with you. I've often felt like there was this sense of Japanese people do this, which if we were to say American people do this, we would be offended by that.
Yeah, sure.
We're not all the same, and while that might be it might be more, extensive with people in the United States. Any kind of generalization like that is going to be somewhat misleading, I guess. Yeah. So that being the case, let me, before I get into more of the ministry kind of things, Becky, since you were born in Japan, what was it like for you to come to the U.S. when your parents would come on furlough?
Well, when I was littler, I don't remember that being a big issue, except when I was like in kindergarten. I don't remember this, but apparently I couldn't speak English. I could understand English, but I always answered in Japanese. But when I came to America, I think my dad said that I totally forgot Japanese in about a month. And he wanted to do a little play where I would say arigato, which is thank you. And I couldn't even pronounce it. I said arigato. But when I came in 9th grade, that was really tough because I had no concept of what the kids around me, their world values, their views, and everything they talked about was different. The TV shows, the jokes, it was totally different. So it was very, very hard to fit in. I was thankful for a church setting because I had good friends in the church setting. But as far as ninth grade in a public school, it was rugged.
That's going to be rough for anybody, though.
Yeah.
Our son was after our first 6 years, he came back. He was in eighth grade, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he went to a school, and we didn't do any football in Japan. There's baseball, but no football. So first day in PE, the teacher divided up all the boys, and Billy is much taller than he looks, very athletic, and he said to Billy, "You're going to be the quarterback." Well, Billy had no idea what a quarterback was, and all the other boys in this group just mocked him to scorn. How could a boy not know what a quarterback does? That's like not knowing football is like the unforgivable sin.
Yeah.
He had a hard time. He's coming back for a year in America. He really did.
Yeah, like our daughter, when her first year of college, I asked her what she wanted me to pray for her about. And she said, give me a day to think about it. She came back the next day or so and she says, Mom, I know this sounds weird, but could you pray for me that I will learn to love Americans?
Wow.
So, and it was just, they were so foreign to her, but the Lord gave her an RA job, and she got to know people on a deeper level. And then she realized, hey, they're not so different. Mm-mm. It's just some of the superficial things are different.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. I would think that for a young person, it would be pretty tough, and especially, it's interesting what you say though about the younger Japanese, that they, what we hear in the States is that the population is declining.
Oh, yeah, so big
Japan because of not having babies, I guess.
Yeah,
is the thing.
Yeah. They'll do just about anything to get you to have a baby. They'll pay for everything.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then I'm also interested. It's a little thing about children being bilingual, especially since my granddaughter is learning Spanish from her mom's family and her mom. And so that's sort of her heart language because she speaks it with her mom, and English from everyone else in her world. And it's interesting. She's 2 and 4 months now. And she understands Spanish, but she doesn't, she's like you. She answers in English. She doesn't really speak.
Yeah, I was the opposite.
Spanish. She doesn't really speak Spanish. She just understands Spanish when she knows what's going on, I rarely hear her say anything in Spanish, although she will with her mom. And I try to speak Spanish with her, and she gives me a look like, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
You're not those people that speak Spanish.
Yes. It's amazing how they just look at a face and they know exactly which language should come out of their mouths.
Yeah. So I try, but she's sort of like, I'm not speaking Spanish with you. But my thing is, I want her to know that she can't get away with anything, that I know what she's saying, I know what she's saying. So, so do you have anything to say, Becky, as someone growing up bilingual?
Well, I think growing up bilingual, like sometimes I would, like when I was a teenager, I didn't have any American friends. We had some missionaries. They had kids, but they were all younger. But all my friends totally were Japanese.
Yeah.
And so all my heart talk was in Japanese. And so, yet my education was in English. So, but I also went to like audit college classes when I was in high school. I would just go in and sit in Kagoshima University and audit some classes. So I was able to broaden my language widely in that way. But being bilingual, there are just certain things that you just have a hard time communicating in either language. There's just a better Japanese word or a better English word. Like when we talk, even though we talked in each other with English, but we still use these words because they're just better in Japanese or, vice versa. And like our son, when I talk to him, like on messages on the internet, he gets going into Japanese.
A lot of Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's married to a Japanese girl.
And both of them grew up in Japan, so yeah.
Yeah. So,
but our son-in-law made a huge commitment. Our son and his wife decided to just go straight Japanese. Our daughter and her husband decided they were going to commit to their kids being bilingual.
Yeah.
And so they are totally bilingual.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, I think because they live in Japan and Takuya's Japanese, their heart language, I still think,
No, Japanese.
is Japanese.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Church.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it takes effort
Yeah.
for that to happen.
At this college I taught at, there's a very large Hispanic population. It was like 35, 40%. So the students would come in, and I see this with my daughter-in-law's family. They'll come in and they're just going back Spanish, Spanish, English, English, Spanish, Spanish, English. They just go back and forth.
Yeah.
And I said, why do y'all do that?
Yeah.
And they said, we don't know. And I said, well, there must be a reason. And they said, well, it's just some things are easier to say in one language versus the other. And,
Definitely.
and some things are more logical in another language too, even than in English. So, yeah. So all that just as background. I know I'm having such a good time with you that I'm not thinking of the time. So you mentioned earlier, Bill, that it's easy to make friends, but hard to make disciples. And is that an original statement with you, or is that
No?
Actually, Becky's dad used to say that, so I just stole it from him.
Okay.
I'm sure others have said similar things.
So what do all these cultural differences, how do they figure into making evangelism and disciple making and such difficult in Japan?
Becky can throw in some things here, but I think there are at least two big ones. One is the sense of sin. There's no appreciation of Christ, the cross, all the prophecies of a Messiah coming, any of that, unless you have a sense that you personally are a sinner before an almighty God who created you. Where in Japan, the word for sin is the common word for crime, and it's always dealing with either breaking law in a country or hurting a person. So if I sin, I apologize to someone usually.
Yeah.
I can apologize to the country in some sense, a policeman, or I can apologize to you in person, but no sense in it whatsoever that I've offended God in any way whatsoever. So when a big corporation does something wrong, it's always a big thing on TV. All the head people of the corporation get out there in a big line, and they all say, "Meiwaku kakite gomen nasai," or something. "Moshiwake gozaimasen," and they all bow real low, and sometimes get down on their hands and knees and put their heads to the ground. And that is how you take care of sin. It's because you've offended someone else. Where biblically, and as a Christian, obviously, the main meaning of sin is not hurting a person, although you may. It's breaking the law of a totally righteous and holy God. And without that understanding, the cross, the prophecies, the teaching of the Bible, everything in Romans, and just go through the whole Bible makes no sense whatsoever. And getting to where a person feels like, oh, before God, I am a sinner, that is probably the most difficult thing.
And we can't do it for them.
No, the Holy Spirit has to convict them of sin, righteousness, and judgment. So I think in Japan, more than in America, people start in the Old Testament and talk about what is a sin.
Well, and just what is an almighty God? They don't. Yeah. There is no, all-powerful, incredible God.
So everybody talks about that. I think there's one more, and that's truer now in America than it used to be, I think, but there's no sense of truth as regards to God or morals or, after death. When we say the word religion, I hate that word, but when people say religion in Japan and more in America, I think, they think your opinion influenced by your background and culture.
About death,
sin, God, all those things. So all it is an opinion. And like noses, everybody has one. And you are perfectly welcome to your opinion.
Yeah.
But that you would say that your opinion is nominative or exclusive or in some way true is absolutely bizarre and beyond anybody even thinking that you could say that.
Seems very, very arrogant.
Arrogant and rude.
Yeah.
And Americans, as everybody in Japan knows, everybody in America is a Christian. So, it gives us a great start there because we don't want anybody to think that you become an American to become a Christian. But, that whole idea that there is no conceivable possibility of truth in those areas because all it is an opinion, I think is something that has to be overcome. And to get there is very hard. It has to be a conviction through the God's power, really, because that is what people think, and more in America as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Okay. There's a lot there to unpack. So to the average Japanese person, do they have a concept of I hate this term, higher power, God, transcendent being?
Not like the
Not theologically and anything like the Bible, because of course, if you die, you've heard of the Buddha is not really a God. He's a man who has
enlightenment.
And really everybody in Japan pretty much all think that when they die, they go to either heaven, which is their sort of image from American movies, or some sort of a wonderful state, sort of like a Buddha. And no matter how bad of a person you are, when you die, you go there.
Yeah.
And
very common.
Very common. Just
or just go to nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. But there isn't really any that sort of sense of God. There in Shintoism, there's the sense that there are 8 million different gods, at least throughout Japan, but they all have a limited power for this particular sphere. They may help you not to have accidents, but they're not going to keep you from having accidents entirely. Yeah. They may just help you a little, and it doesn't hurt to go and get their help.
Yeah. So like we had our first church in Ida, there was a Shinto shrine right behind the church.
Oh, yeah, right behind.
And this one guy came up to Bill and said, "This is such a blessed spot. You're making both the gods happy."
Yeah, so you're safer here. That sense that there is no, in the sense of an all-powerful sovereign, works out everything according to his plan, by divine providence, God, nothing like that, no.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
Wow, okay, that's interesting. So, a lot of people today, when they think of Japan, they think of all the anime and all that stuff, which I don't know anything about except to look at it and to see the beautiful paintings, that of nature and all. But so would there be a lot of that nature as a god kind of thing, or a god of a certain type of nature or a spirit?
But yes and no, because even though they're everywhere, I mean,
every big tree, every white snake,
everywhere we walk to is pretty much a high place, like in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And so it's everywhere. It's, I don't know if you know Miyazaki Hayao, the most famous anime.
Spirited Away, Totoro.
Yes,
okay. Okay, so in Totoro, you'll see all kinds of idols and things that are worshipped. But it's not the average Japanese, like an adult, if you said, "Do you really believe in that?" They'd probably say no.
No.
But it would be culture. And woe unto anyone.
Culture is sacrosanct and holy.
Yeah. Culture. You do not mess with culture.
That's right.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, wow, that's very interesting. And so, the name of this podcast is Dialogues with Creators. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, that's just because I had to come up with a name that hadn't been taken already. But my thing about it, my theme is that creativity is everywhere in every walk of life. And I firmly believe that missionaries who doing cross-cultural ministry have to be the most creative people in the world. So that's where I come off on that. So how have you two, as well as other missionaries in Japan, given everything you've said so far, found creative ways to engage the Japanese people that you come across?
Oh, well, Bill's pointing to me. So some of the fun things, but okay, I guess I need to preface this, that the whole goal of any of these things that I'm going to mention is to have contacts with people. And then you have to take the time outside of those events and classes or whatever to develop friendships. Because usually when we get to share the gospel in depth and do personal Bible studies is when we have had a personal friendship develop with that person.
One-on-one relationship.
Yeah, so it takes time. But one of the fun things that I got to do is the city asked me to teach sign language. And I told them I shouldn't be teaching sign language. You need to get a deaf person. But they were at the stage of they didn't think that the deaf person would be able to communicate with the class. So
Japanese sign language.
Yeah,
of course.
Japanese sign language. Yeah. So we got our name in every mailbox, over probably 100,000 mailboxes. And I taught Japanese Sign Language for the city.
I taught English for the city.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so it was just a wonderful opportunity because people saw your name in their mailboxes, and it wasn't from a church, it was from the city. And you had these classes and you developed friendships. And then we sort of, trying to get from seeing people in class to a more in-depth relationship. Then you can tell her what we did next.
Oh, you mean all
trip?
Well, we took about 6 different trips with people to America. We'd go to Washington, D.C. and New York and San Francisco and
Hawaii.
We had all sorts of wherever they wanted to go. And we'd take them along. That created closer one-on-one relationships.
Yeah.
One of the ladies who's still at our first church, I witnessed to her great length, sitting in front of the mastodon in the National History Museum.
Yeah, History Museum.
In Washington, D.C. So, yeah. We also had gospel choirs.
That was fun.
People in the community, we did that for years and had up to hundreds of people come and pay money to hear our gospel choirs. I don't feel very creative because none of those things are really, nobody else has done them. I will say that what I feel the biggest burden on as a speaker, because I do a lot of speaking, obviously, is coming up with illustrations that illustrate the point that I'm trying to make.
Mm-hmm.
About the gospel.
About the gospel. Not just saying the gospel, but coming up with a illustration that fits their point of view and they understand. And we do a lot more illustrating in simple ways, putting things on the bottom shelf to the best we can do in Japan, I think, than most people do in America, because there's an assumption that people understand these things in America, whether they do or not.
Right.
But in Japan, we assume they do not. So we do a lot of illustrating. We do little skits before sermons quite often. And all those things
one act plays.
One act plays, Becky and I, and we do our little skit. And as a result, then it's a lead in so people know what we're trying to talk about. Yeah, a lot of that type of thing.
Can I go back to one thing that we discussed about sin? And I just thought these 2 things that were from, we were able to teach English and Bible in a totally secular cram school where, you finish school and then you go to some. And Bill did over a series of several months, we did the 10 Commandments. And we handed out to the junior high class cards. And so what do you think about what we've been studying? And I just thought this illustrated so well the average Japanese view. The one girl wrote, I can totally understand the last half. Those, you
do not kill.
Everyone needs to be doing that. But she said the first ones, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then in my class, I have an adult.
And let me stop for anybody who's listening. Okay, the first ones are, there's only worship God.
Yeah.
You don't use God's name in vain.
No idols.
No idols. And the 4th one is the Sabbath.
Sabbath,
Yeah. Okay. So that would be, those would all be, as we say about God, the transcendent God that we worship.
Horizontal, it was like horizontal, sure, of course, because
honor your family, sure.
That fits fine,
yeah. And then my adult English class, I handed out, nobody writes their name or anything, and they answer in Japanese and said, what do you think about this study? And one lady, I was thankful. She wrote what she really thought. She said, the exclusivity of Christianity is repulsive.
Wow. Huh.
Because we're saying that this is true. That means, in essence, we're saying
something else is not
true. Yeah.
Huh. Wow. That's interesting. So what would be then, and this would be like a kind of like a prayer request list, but not, unless phrase it differently. What would be the top 3 to 5 things you would want the average American Christian, and I know you meet these people all the time, to know about what it's like for you to live and work in Japan?
We always say 1 is a big number.
Yeah.
So pray that those ones will be saved.
Yeah. 1 is we deal with people one at a time. People are people.
Mm-hmm.
They're not some weird group over there. They're just people.
Yeah.
We work with deaf and hearing, both deaf and hearing. Deaf are people. Yeah. So just
culture. Deafness is a subculture within Japanese ministry.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay. They don't have the words that make everything nice and soft and harmonious. They say it straight.
Oh.
And that can cause cultural clashes within the church.
We need to exhibit patience with people.
Yeah.
There's an old line that it takes at least 7 times hearing the gospel before someone believes. And I think 7 is probably
it's a low
number.
Yeah, it's a low.
I remember we had a girl that we were very close to. She came to church for years.
School teacher.
And if there's anybody in the whole world that belabors the events in the Bible, including Jesus and his life, take place in a historical context and really happened, it has to be me. But after many years, one day she was sitting at our kitchen table and she said, "So you're saying Jesus really lived?" I said, "Yeah." "And you're saying he really died on a cross?" I said, "Yeah." "And he really rose again?"
All these things in the Bible you're saying they happened?
Actually happened. She heard it, went in one ear for years before she finally got the point that's what we're trying to say. Because it's religion, it can have no basis of truth. It's just made up stories. And that it could possibly be that somebody was saying this really happened was bizarre to her. But she finally did make a profession of faith. But, it takes time. And if the Lord doesn't open people's hearts and ears to the truth, you have no hope whatsoever in Japan or America.
Yeah, that's interesting. Why was she studying with you then?
She was interested in.
She was interested in Bible study. She went to church every Sunday.
She was seeing it as literature.
I guess
literature, like moral teaching.
Maybe religion.
Yeah, religion.
I think that's the good word because to a lot of people, religion is perfectly okay. But it doesn't mean that it's true. It's just good.
That's why people ask us all the time, is there opposition to the gospel in Japan, like from the government or people? And basically, no, because Japanese, even if they think this guy is out of his mind, they will smile and listen and,
You have a right to believe whatever you want.
Okay. Going back to about the deaf people, that was interesting what you said is, and this might be a judgment call, or maybe, I don't know. Do you feel that the educational system and the services for the deaf are maybe better in Japan than they are in the States?
We used to say that, and it seemed like language-wise,
deaf do better than in the States often.
Yeah, but yet there is a definite, JSL way of talking without.
There is. But also in America, you have like Sorensen, which is a way that you call up you can have an interpreter all the time. Like if you went to the hospital as a deaf person in America, you can require to have an interpreter. Yes. They do not have anything like that in Japan.
Oh, really?
There are not deaf rights, if you will, are very, very little in comparison. On the other hand, we know a lot of deaf who have a very good command of Japanese and do very well in society. I think the biggest difference is probably work ethic, if you will. And I think part of that is in America, if you're deaf and you don't work, you can get an extra amount of money from the government, SSD. And there's a deaf sign language in English where you're getting this money. In Japan, you get that money from the government because you're deaf. But if you work, you also get that money.
Okay.
So for
unless you have a very,
very high income. But for your average person, you get both. So if you're a deaf person, you can get a lot more money and have a better standard of life by working. And obviously our goal is to have people work, and it's better for them if they work. And of our experience in Japan, more Japanese people seem to have jobs that they're faithful to and do pretty well in.
But I will say that a lot of, especially where we live, a lot of the jobs were very,
they weren't
like
great
slaughterhouses.
Yeah, that's true.
Those
type of
yeah.
Okay.
So but they had a fairly good standard of living because they get both money.
Yeah. So were there any other things you wanted in that, to let people know what it's like for you in Japan for prayer or otherwise?
Yeah, just pray for patience and boldness and to not give up on people. I was just encouraged recently because Bill started really praying for this one kid again. And I felt like maybe he, had given up on him, but he's come back. So,
don't really give up on people, but some people you've known for years and years, it's hard to be as consistent in prayer with them as you should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the Lord changes people's hearts and people do get saved. It's a slow process.
Yeah. I think that's one thing where I've heard you say that someone might be coming to church or listening or whatever for years and years, and then they just say, eh.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Oh,
just-
definitely happens.
Yeah.
they're not. They might be willing to be your friend, but they're not interested in
Sure.
the other. Yeah.
And we continue to be their friend.
No.
Do you think that the traditional idea of isn't there worshiping your ancestors? Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really. I think the word worshiping we need to change. Like
Veneration.
revering.
Yeah.
Well, after you die for about 40 years, your ancestor is in a sense still on the earth somewhere. There's spirits around. And you want to take care of them, and observant households, which are most, will have a shrine in the house with a picture of your ancestor, usually your parents or your grandparents, because after 40 years, they're ascended. And they will usually do something every day, maybe a little bowl of rice or a cup of sake or an orange or something. And they will also go and often every day put some incense and put their hands together. But and if they're very observant, they'll say something about their day, like today I'm taking a test.
Please help me
appreciate
with
your
the
help.
test.
Yeah, but very little strong. It's half mashing. Superstition, I would believe, but most everyone does it.
And to not do it like a wife marries this guy, he's the eldest son. One of his parents have died. For her not to take care of that God shelf is almost a divorceable offense.
Oh, yeah. It shows you hate your parents.
Right. I think the fact that it's called a God shelf kind of.
Yeah, it messes up the idea. Yeah, they're not really gods in what we think of as gods, but but you are asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
So you're sensing that they are going to be able to do something for you.
And there's also, when people have something bad happen, we hear this all the time. It's gosenzo sama ni yoku shite nakatta kara. You didn't do right for your ancestors.
Yeah. Karma.
Yeah.
It is. So that is part of it. The word karma isn't used that much.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But that sense is there. That sense is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Well, that's like people have, little, what do they call it? St. Christopher medals in a car, to pray for for travel,
Right.
that kind of thing. It's similar, but it's different. Yeah.
You want to cover the bases.
Yeah. Just in case. Okay. Well, today I have been overly privileged to talk to my two dear friends, Bill and Becky Petite, who have been on furlough from Japan since last spring, right? And they will be returning soon. I can't think of anyone else I would have wanted on this podcast, and I'm so excited that I got to talk to them. But the one thing I forgot to ask you about was they got to go to Europe on a Viking cruise last few weeks.
Hey, Viking!
I have to hear them talk about that for a little bit. I've been told I have to by a mutual friend. So what went on with that? And where did you go?
Our friends took us, who we're living with right now, and we went to
Rome for 2 days.
Naples,
Crete, Ephesus,
Sicily,
yeah. Ephesus,
Corinth,
and Athens.
Okay.
It was amazing.
It was cool.
It was amazing. The food on Viking was beyond belief.
Not a drop of rain. And it was a wonderful time. Really was. We walked zillions of miles.
Yeah.
I bet you did. Yeah. My church has mentioned that they are going to take an educational trip, they call it, as opposed to a mission trip, which there is a difference, to Greece and maybe Egypt, but those would be two separate things. But I was in Turkey. So what did you think of Ephesus?
Oh, we loved.
Isn't that awesome? I mean,
ancient Ephesus.
Yeah. You know that it's huge and that there's a lot there, but you really, when you go, you see it and you say, wow, they have a lot of stuff still here.
And the library, they said, it took 125 years for archaeologists to get it to this point. Mm-hmm. And there's just the whole hillside it's all ruins underneath, but you can't see them yet. They just have.
But you can see an awful lot. There's Ephesus is amazing.
I think the Turkish government has really spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And what I really loved was that up the street from the library is that those homes.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that blew me away. That
I
the way
loved
people.
the little cross that he called it Christian graffiti.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
That was so neat. And the mosaic floors in their house and stores. It helped me understand how Paul, I thought tent making. I really didn't get why Paul was a tent maker, but they had awnings for all those shops. And, it was just really amazing.
It's definitely worth going.
When and then you can see the stadium where they had the riot and,
Sure.
and the place where he would have, so you're like, okay, the Apostle Paul walked down the street.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Deal with this.
Same exact street.
And then John was there and Timothy was there.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it was pretty overwhelming. I think Ephesus was probably my high point. We saw Cappadocia, all the churches, 7 churches, and Istanbul, but I think Ephesus probably kind of did it the most for me.
You're walking on the same stones. It's amazing, really.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Did you go to ancient Corinth?
No, we didn't go to Greece.
Corinth is not nearly as big, but it is impressive because they have one of the temples there and the Bema Seat place that Paul was saying, it's there,
Yeah.
It's really quite impressive.
Yeah.
And my favorite city probably was Athens. I really, really thought it. Of course, Rome's amazing, but Athens, I really like Athens.
Yeah. Rome is so extreme. It's just like, you just can't, just much. Ephesus is smaller, you can kind of get your head around it, but Rome is just like, oh my word, Did you go to Vesuvius or whatever they call it, Pompeii?
I never got there, unfortunately. Something got mixed up and we didn't get into Pompeii.
Pompeii, yeah. I have a story about Pompeii that you'll appreciate. I was there in early 2000s. I think it was before 9/11, so maybe it was 20 because we didn't have travel problems. It was like probably 2001 that I went, or 2000. And we were in a restaurant in Vesuvius in Pompeii, and I went into a bathroom, and it was a bunch of Japanese people.
Oh, really?
Were visiting. We're there. Yeah. And there had to be like 20 little Japanese ladies, older, because this is 25 years ago. And I was this big, I just called Gigundo blonde woman, I never felt, that had to be the...
You're not that big, Barb, but okay.
I know, but I mean, they were all like 5 feet tall. They were older, from the other generation. And I was just so conscious of being... But then we went to Rome and the Vatican and the Sistine Chapel and everything. And there were a lot of Japanese people everywhere. Yeah.
Not now.
Really?
We went there hardly any. And I think the reason is because the yen is so weak now. When you went, the yen was strong. Now the yen is really weak. We saw one Japanese person.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back then when I was traveling in Europe, I'd see a lot. I was in the St. Paul's Cathedral one day, and it was Easter, and there were Japanese people all over the place. So.
Yeah. Less now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So any other things about your trip?
It was just beyond, even as you talk about, the streets that Paul and Timothy and, it gives me chills because I want to communicate that to our grandchildren, that all these things in the Bible, Grandma and Grandpa, we walked some of those streets. Yeah. It's real. It happened.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And this is, as a missionary, when we talk about, say, Buddhist stuff, there are volumes of Buddhist scriptures, and they even have stories of things that the Buddha, Shakasama, what they say in Japanese, said, but they were written hundreds of years after, supposedly, the Buddha lived, and they're made-up stories, like that he came out of the womb, took 8 steps, pointed to heaven, and said, "I'm the greatest that ever lived." And, and all this stuff is written hundreds of years after he died by people who never met people who never met the Buddha.
Right.
So you're used to these made-up sort of religious stories, and that's what everybody knows if we're in Japan, and they don't know that there could be a possibility of something that actually did happen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being on here today. And I know you're busy as you're trying to get away. I'm so excited that you're...
and embarrassed.
Delighted to be on with an old friend. Thank you, Barb.
Okay, God bless.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you, Barb.